This is Big River Chestnuts in Sunderland, Mass. And it's a newly planted chestnut field on about 7 acres of lowland floodplain land right on the Connecticut River. And we're going to grow out probably these 250 chestnuts to begin as one piece of the production, chestnut production in the region, to build this chestnut industry as part of the New England food system. There's a lot of people doing vegetables, there's a lot of livestock, there's a lot of diversification of agriculture, but a real gap in the food system right now is nut production. And so chestnuts are super viable here. They do really well. And this tree here will grow up to be about 30 to 40 feet tall. It'll produce 30 to 50 pounds of nuts off of it every year. And that comes in to be about 2,000 to 3,000, even up to 4,000 or 5,000 pounds an acre of chestnuts. So it'll be a lot. And this is laid out to be open spacing with room in between the rows for other crops, for either livestock grazing, so as a silvopasture system, or potentially small fruit or herbs, some other perennial crop that could grow in between. It's just encouraging what's here. There's a pretty good mix of herbaceous vegetation, woodies that are coming in, trees from the nearby forest, and so we're allowing a lot of the rooting of those plants in order to build the deeper soil layers, to rebuild what's been lost over the generations of farming here. So managing the regrowth, allowing it to come up to fairly good height, which is allowing it to correspondingly also root into the soil really deeply, and then mowing occasionally every 2 to 4 weeks to drop all that organic material on the surface, and then also have the root growth underneath. And then we're also adding quite a bit of minerals too. So we're bringing in some rock dusts and azomite kind of amendments just right around each tree location, and then beginning to bring in cover crop mixes. So a real diversified cover crop mix that will also root in and start to cycle nutrients on site here. Irrigation, I don't have any irrigation set up right now. We have irrigation off of the Connecticut River, which is 100 yards away to the west here, and we'll probably set up either a drip system if needed. The trees will like to have, if we're in a dry summer, they would like to have some water right before, as the nuts are growing and enlarging and filling out. They like to have a little bit of water, so if we're in a dry period there, it'd be really good to get some water here. I've also got a trailer, and we could pull behind the tractor or the truck a trailer with a water tank on it. So there's a potential that we would just fill from the river or the well, and then just actually go tree to tree and give them water. Because really we should only be watering maybe once or twice a summer for each tree. We want these to root deep and be able to go get their own water. This is kind of an agroforestry integrated system with various different crops, and the benefits are both in having multiple crops growing in one place. So you've got some resilience there. If one crop has a hard year, you've got some other crops that could do well. They also take up different niches and start to mimic somewhat of a forest system, like a upper canopy layer and then a lower ground layer. We're also creating a system that has this successional sequence. So these trees are very small and there's a lot of space between them right now. So in the interim, there's a lot of opportunity to use that space in between either for grazing, for perennial cropping, potentially annual cropping, but we're really trying to not do the tillage that's required, because we're here in this floodplain, lower floodplain. There's been a lot of tillage here for generations, which has led to a lot of erosion, disruption of the soil. A lot of the soil, topsoil, has been lost to erosion over time. So the goal of developing perennial agriculture is to rebuild soil, rebuild that resource, and reduce the erosion, because we're right next to the river. There's a small channel that leads to the river behind me, and by trying to reduce that erosion, we're improving the water quality in the watershed. And it also is providing habitat. So what you see in between the trees, as the trees are getting established, there's a lot of herbs. There's goldenrod and clover and different kinds of shrubs, elderberry, and lots of different things growing. So it's providing habitat to the other animals that are here on this land while the trees are growing. So multiple benefits, lots of different connecting pieces that are all sort of mutually supporting each other.